Hi guys, this video is brought to you by AcetheCLAT and it is a video solution to the next three passages, passage 4, 5 and 6 that was sent by me on Telegram some time back. So it makes sense for you to attempt those passages before moving on with the video solution, right? The passages are linked down in the description. You may go and attempt them and then come back for the video solution, right? In this passage number 4, till now we have received 17 responses and the average score is 2.2, right? So it consists of 2 paragraphs followed by 4 questions. So let us read the passage first. Passage starts by saying that by upholding the approach of the Kaveri Water Dispute Tribunal while slightly modifying its award, the Supreme Court has boosted the prospects of a viable water sharing arrangement among the riparian states. Riparian states matlab agricultural states, right? So the author says that by upholding, Supreme Court has upholded the approach of a tribunal, of a water dispute tribunal between two states probably. The reaction of the author is that the Supreme Court has boosted the prospects of a viable water sharing arrangement among the riparian states. That it has reduced the tribunal's allocation for Tamil Nadu and raised Karnataka's share does detract from the fairness of the decision. So the author says that according to probably the tribunal, Tamil Nadu should have received more share, but Supreme Court has in fact cut down on its share and raised the share of Karnataka. It has underscored, which means the Supreme Court has underscored that no single state has primacy in accessing water. Supreme Court has said that no single state has supremacy in accessing water. The Supreme Court's message, now this is important, is that the center should get down to creating a legal and technical framework to implement the tribunal's award as modified by the judgment. So agreed that this judgment is a modified version of the tribunal's. The Supreme Court has asked, or its message is, center should go ahead with the implementation, right? This is the strongest affirmation so far from a basin state's right to its share of water regularly. So here is a claim made by the author that the Supreme Court judgment is the strongest affirmation so far from a basin state's right to its share of water regularly. It further says that Tamil Nadu, that has seen agrarian distress in its delta districts, ought to be satisfied. Tamil Nadu ought to be satisfied. This is the reaction or expression of the author, mind you, right? Tamil Nadu ought to be satisfied with any prescribed allocation being met as per a schedule. Karnataka can take heart, which means Karnataka can be happy with the judgment from the reduction in its mandatory release target. Neither state, author further says, that neither state in any case should be aggrieved by the stipulation that equity is at the heart of a water sharing agreement. According to the author, the Supreme Court has done a fairly decent job and both states ought to be satisfied with the judgment. The center should implement the judgment and, very importantly, neither state should be aggrieved by this judgment, right? Let us move on to the second paragraph. Resolving an interstate dispute is mainly about balancing the competing genuine demands and interests of each state and coming up with a pragmatic arrangement. So, according to author, when there is a dispute between two states, it should be resolved by keeping these two things in mind, by balancing the competing genuine demands and interests and coming up with a practical arrangement. The parties would do well to see the judgment as of the culmination of a fair and scientific adjudicative process. According to author, it should be seen as a fair and scientific adjudicative process, right? They should pose no further impediment to the smooth implementation of the order and be prepared for the next 15 years to share the bounty and distress caused by nature. Author has indicated that this judgment is culmination on the end of a fair and scientific adjudicative process. It has followed two important points, right? Balancing the competing genuine demands and interests and coming up with a practical arrangement. They should pose, in the opinion of author, they should pose no further impediment to the implementation of the order as read. And by dash, which means there is a blank over here, we need to fill it. The center has not covered itself in glory throughout this protracted dispute. Okay. It took 6 years to notify the award, and even in the final hearing argued it was not obliged to frame a scheme for implementation, which means whatever the word here should be, it should at least be connected to something that is delayed, right? Because the center has took 6 years, and even the author is exaggerating that in the final hearing as well, it said that it argued that it was not obliged to frame a scheme for implementation, right? Author के opinion में it should comply with the court's direction and set up the Kaveri Water Management Board as part of the scheme. It will be unfortunate, right, if the states and centers refuse to acknowledge its finality. There is ample judicial wisdom in the country to adjudicate complex interstate disputes, but the question is whether there are enough cooperative parties to make judgments work. So the author concludes by saying that इस देश में there is ample judicial wisdom, but there is lack of, or there is want of, more cooperative parties. There is lack of cooperative parties, or there is want of more cooperative parties to make judgments work. In this, the passage, the author keeps saying that, you know what, Supreme Court has done a good job in resolving a long-term interstate water dispute. Now, since the judgment has come, it seems to be fair and scientific adjudicative process. Nobody, neither those two states nor the center, should pose any impediment for the implementation of this judgment, right? Okay, so I hope the passage is clear. Let us move to the questions. The first question is, which among the following represents the main idea of the passage? So the main idea question, if you face a main idea question, guys, keep these things in mind, alright? A main idea, the option that is correct, or in fact the main idea itself is something like the general idea that all parts of the passage support, alright? If there are two paragraphs in a passage and there are, numerous sentences in the passage, almost all parts of the passage should support one general idea. And when we identify that one general idea, we identify the main idea of the passage, right? इसमें हमने देखा that author keeps saying the Supreme Court has done well. The states and the center should implement the judgment, right? To further stress on that point, he has said in the last sentence that, you know what, there is ample judicial wisdom, but there is want of more cooperative parties. So he's definitely in favor of implementing the judgment of the interwater dispute, right? A says no single state has primacy in accessing water resources and that rivers are national assets. While this statement is true according to the passage, this is not the main idea of the passage, guys. To those whom answered this question, this as the correct answer, this is not the main idea, but instead it can be a supporting idea, but more than that, it was a statement that was made by the Supreme Court and not the author, right? The author supported this a statement, but still it is a supporting idea, and if you're not satisfied with that explanation, please note that this was underscored by it in any Supreme Court, that no single state has primacy in accessing water resources, neither that and that rivers are national assets. That is true, but this option is somewhat a supporting idea of the passage and never and cannot be the main idea. All right. B says the Karnataka and Tamil Nadu have been happy with the judgment with a few reservations. Well, that is true again. No, wait. That is true again, but again I would put this on supporting idea ka Venn diagram or circle. All right. Rightfully, none of you marked this as the correct option. C is correct, and 8 of you have marked it, and let us see why. The states and the center would do well to accept the finality of the Supreme Court's judgment. मैं तब से यही बात बोल रहा हूँ, right? कि state and the center should accept the finality of the Supreme Court's judgment and implement it, right? Acceptance मतलब implementation ही हुआ है ना? So that is why this is correct. Meanwhile, if I forget, if you have any doubts regarding CLAT prep, mail me at acetheclat@gmail.com. I would be happy to help. All right. D says the judgment of the Supreme Court would set a precedent for future water disputes. Now, guys, this is more of an inference type of question, right? यहाँ पे सिर्फ इतना ही बात की गई है सुप्रीम कोर्ट के जजमेंट के बारे में, एंड कुछ जगह किया गया है, बट इट वुड सेट अ प्रेसिडेंट और नॉट, इट वुड बी अ प्रेसिडेंट फॉर फ्यूचर वाटर डिस्प्यूट्स और नॉट, that may be inferred, but mind you, this we are talking about a main idea question, so this cannot be correct. Let us move to the next question. Question number 2 says, which among the following can be inferred about the judgment of the Supreme Court? Okay, inferred about the judgment of the Supreme Court. A says the author is highly optimistic about the judgment and believes it to be perfectly sound. Really? Two of you, those who have marked this, read the first sentence. By upholding the approach of the Supreme Court while slightly modifying its award, Supreme Court has boosted the prospects, and that it has reduced the tribunal's allocation for Tamil Nadu and raised Karnataka's share does detract. The problem is that it does detract from the fairness of the decision, right? It is not 100% fair. It is never perfectly sound. That is why it cannot be correct. B says the judgment of the Supreme Court may set a precedent for forthcoming water disputes. Well, 9 of you have marked this. This is the correct option, guys, and 6 of you have marked this. Let us look at D as well. The judgment of the Supreme Court has significantly made adjustments to the tribunal's order. Okay, many of you, at least those who have marked this as well, would be thinking कि ये क्यों नहीं होगा, and those who have marked this would be thinking कि B क्यों होना चाहिए, right? See, guys, let us look at what author has said about the judgment of the Supreme Court. He has said that resolving an interstate dispute is mainly about this. He has first laid the characteristics of a good judgment, and then he said that the parties would do well to see the judgment as of the culmination of a fair and scientific adjudicative process. समझ रहे हो? He has said that it is a fair, not 100% fair, but still fair and scientific adjudicative process, and that is what we look in precedence, right? Think about it. That is what we look in precedence, and the fact that this option mentions the word may makes it more inferable, right? Let me tell you the problem with D. This option says that the judgment of the Supreme Court has significantly made adjustments. Well, what are the adjustments? Let us see. First sentence में author ने कहा it is only slightly modifying its award. And what was that slight modification? तमिलनाडु का वाटर का शेयर रिड्यूस करके कर्नाटका को बढ़ा दिया गया. That was only the slight modification. Right, so the word significantly is a problem over here. This word may seems more appropriate in this setting rather than this word significantly in this setting. That is why B is the correct option. Alright, C no one has marks, so let us see what it has to say. Tamil Nadu as a state is the intended and primary beneficiary of the judgment. इसका तो शेयर ही रिड्यूस कर दिया गया था. Right, so it is not the primary beneficiary, so to say. 3 says which of the following options would most appropriately fill the blank. 1, confusion सिर्फ इसमें और इसमें होना चाहिए. Right, author has said that it was delaying the judgment or delaying the process of the judgment of the proceedings. Right, the center by dash, the center has not covered itself in glory. It took 6 years to notify the award, and even in the final hearing argued it was not obliged to frame a scheme for implementation. So it is being indecisive. And D says undermining. I think नहीं B और D नहीं, B और C में confusion होना चाहिए. By undermining it just doesn't make sense grammatically as well, right? C makes sense when you see कि हाँ undetermined मतलब determine या फिर decision ना लेना. But B would be more appropriate over here because this does not fit in grammatically. If we fit this over there, we would have a grammatical mistake. So and the question is which one of the following would most appropriately, right? So B is correct. Let us move to the next question. Which among the following would precisely attack the author's arguments in the passage? Okay. C is correct. A is not correct. Nobody has marked. B is not correct as well. 4 of you have marked this and 3 of you have marked D. Let us look at A. The Supreme Court made a few necessary amendments to the tribunal's order. Rightfully, nobody has marked this as correct option because it does not really affect the argument. सी इसका काउंटर में क्या हो सकता है कि सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने अमेंडमेंट्स किए, राइट, और तुम बोल रहे हो सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने नेसेसरी अमेंडमेंट्स किए, बट ऑथर नेवर सेड दैट दोज अमेंडमेंट्स वर अननेसेसरी, राइट. आई होप यू अंडरस्टैंड दिस कैन नॉट बी करेक्ट. B says the central and state government refused to not comply with the orders of the Supreme Court. Those who have marked this, I want to tell them that it does in fact strengthens the author's argument. Alright, author has said that these two states tended not to follow or implement the author court's orders. Right? He has said that Supreme Court के बारे में बताया and the fact that he has said the parties would do well to see the judgment as of the culmination of a fair and scientific adjudicative process is an indication that, you know, these parties pose impediments to the path of Supreme Court's judgment, to the implementation of Supreme Court's judgment. So the fact that this statement, this option is saying that they refuse to not comply, in fact slightly or comprehensively strengthens the author's argument, but never can it weaken the author's argument. Alright, I hope you get this. C is the correct option. The judgment of the court may seem viable on paper, but it is practically unimplementable. See, passage में क्या लिखा गया है author के हिसाब से, that it is a fair judgment, right? And it is a combination of a fair and scientific adjudicative process. So the problem with this is that it was the opinion of the author, right? And which among the and इस तरह के questions जो weaken या strengthen करने वाले होते हैं, options को हम true मानते हैं, right? So this is saying that the judgment of the Supreme Court is practically unimplementable. So this Option completely devastates the author's suggestion or opinion, right? So this is correct. And D says the central and state governments tend not implement the court's orders properly. As talked about earlier, this cannot be correct as well. So the correct options are C, B, B and C, right? Let us move to the next passage. So this is the second passage of the video, guys, or passage number 5. It has 2 paragraphs yet again, and it is followed by 4 questions. We received 15 responses. The average score was 1.9, similar to passage 4 where average score was, I think, 2.2, right? Let us look into this. The first paragraph says that the virtual summit between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his Bangladesh counterpart, यानी बांग्लादेश के Prime Minister, Bangladesh की Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, where they discussed issues ranging from the violent border incidents to the COVID-19 fact, demonstrates their desire to reboot India-Bangladesh ties that have faced challenges in recent months. Okay, in the first sentence, in the first 2 parts, he prefaces about the event. The author, he or she, briefs us about the event, right? That Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his Bangladesh counterpart or Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina attended a virtual summit. They discussed issues. They discussed a whole lot of issues, and this event demonstrates, matlab, this is the author's opinion, the desire to reboot India-Bangladesh ties that have faced challenges in recent months. Okay. Mr. Modi called Bangladesh a major pillar in India's neighborhood first policy, while Ms. Hasina invited him to visit Bangladesh in March for the celebrations of the 50th anniversary of its independence. Author has said that this expresses their desire, and he has made a claim, and he supports that claim over here. Right, the fact that Mr. Modi called Bangladesh a major pillar, and the fact that Ms. Hasina invited him to visit Bangladesh for the 50th anniversary of its independence is an indication that demonstrates that they want to reboot their ties. He further says that it is a key opportunity for India, which played a major role in Bangladesh's liberation in 1971, to address these issues adversely affecting the partnership. Okay, so he said that it is an opportunity that India should capitalize on, right? This sentence is marked as 1. Despite the friendship remaining solid, the border has been sensitive. Okay, in spite of friendship remaining solid, the border has been sensitive. The CAA and the proposed NRC, which Ms. Hasina called unnecessary, have created a negative impression about India. So in this sentence, he is saying that the border has been sensitive and a negative impression about India has been created by CAA and NRC in the eyes of Ms. Hasina. Also, author further says, China is improving its ties with Bangladesh by ramping up infrastructure investments and expanding economic cooperation. So, it is imperative for India to bolster ties with this all-weather friend at a time when Bangladesh is to celebrate the golden jubilee of its independence. So, Bangladesh is an all-weather friend of India, and this pretty much sums up the entire paragraph, that it is time, or it is opportunity for India to celebrate. It is time or opportunity for India to bolster, yani ki to strengthen ties with this all-weather friend, right? Second paragraph starts with saying that Ms. Hasina has done relatively well in steering Bangladesh through crisis. So this paragraph probably analyzes what Ms. Hasina has done. Under the Awami League government, Bangladesh, India's largest trading partner in South Asia, has expanded its economy and improved social welfare. Despite the Awami League's tight grip over the administration, Ms. Hasina has continued to face challenges from Islamist factions. Okay, so she has done relatively well in spite of facing challenges. Okay, war crimes and corruption trials have weakened the traditional opposition. But another Islamist group, Hifazat-e-Islam, made headlines recently when it organized mass protests against French President Emmanuel Macron and opposed the Hasina's government's plan to build a statue of the country's founding father in Dhaka's suburbs. Okay, more details are rolling in, right? In the second last sentence, probably, the author says that in a speech marking Victory Day, Ms. Hasina said she would not allow the country to be divided on religious lines. India should support her fight against the radical elements. Okay. Again, the author is resurfacing the idea that India should bolster its ties. Ms. Hasina has been doing well, but she is facing some challenges as well, right? And she has made one suggestion or one assertion, right? And according to author, India should support her fight against these radical elements. India should also not allow the ideological inclinations of the ruling party to spoil the historic relationship between two countries. Okay, ruling party of the country, you don't have to infer that this is BJP, because in the passage it is not mentioned, right? So this is not even inference, this is using of outside information which is not allowed, right? So I think one general idea of the passage is that India should bolster its ties with Bangladesh at an opportunity like this, right? उसी के बारे में बात की गई. Let us look at the questions. Which among the following represents the main idea of the passage? As I said, आँख बंद करके मार्क करना चाहिए. C is the correct option. Only 8 of you out of 15, and only 55% of you have marked this option as correct. I'm again saying that when 55% of people have marked the correct option, I don't want to be in those 45%. I would rather not attempt the question, but I don't want to be in those 45% of the question of the aspirants who have lost 0.25 marks, right? Okay. A says, since Bangladesh is a relatively weak country in the world, India need not pay much attention to improve ties with it. Does this happen any time, guys? That since this is a weak country, let us not pay attention to it. Is that ethical? And more importantly, is it anywhere mentioned in the passage? Why anyone who marked this, I think the author would क्या ही करेगा बेचारा, बोलेगा कि यार इतना तो समझाया, right? B says India must safeguard Bangladesh from. Though you should not, but guys, you should not feel bad, okay? Even if you mark these options, this is the part of the learning process, okay? You need not get disheartened about it. If you have any queries or any guidance that you may require, please feel free to mail me. All right. B says India must safeguard Bangladesh from external influences, since India played a vital role in its liberation. Okay, external influences, should India play an important role? Is it even mentioned in the passage? And what should the reason be? Because India played a vital role in its liberation? No, right? This cannot be correct as well. C is the correct option, that India should not take its relationship with Bangladesh for granted and continue to improve ties with its neighbor. This is the correct option, that India should strive to bolster ties with Bangladesh, right? D says India and Bangladesh have shared historic relationships, so nothing can happen to their strong ties. Well, this is again not the correct option, right? I think this requires no explanation. Question number 2 says, which statement can weaken the author's claim made in sentence 1? Okay, let us look at sentence 1. It says that despite the friendship remaining solid, the border has been sensitive. And the other point that we noted was that it has created, the CAA and NRC have created a negative impression about India. So to strengthen this, we have to find evidence that supports or works in this direction. Okay, let us look at the options. A says is not correct, but let's see. A says the Teesta River dispute at the border has been solved now, but after several rounds of negotiations. See guys, this has been solved, right? So problem hi khatam ho gayi. Just a second. The problem is solved, right? So even if it is solved after a lot of negotiations, this cannot strengthen the author's idea. Okay. B says India and Bangladesh have increased connectivity, investments and sub-regional cooperation. Is this going to even tarnish or create a negative impression about India? No, because they have done to improve their relationships, right? These two cannot be correct. I don't get disheartened. I am saying this, but please understand that these mistakes are not allowed. Okay. C says India and Bangladesh have signed several agreements and revived a rail link that was snapped several decades ago. Again, the problem has been solved. So I think the 6 of you who marked any of these options, I think need sort of reflect upon yourself. How can you make such mistakes, right? D is the correct option since all three of them are incorrect. Question number 3 says, which among the following is the assumption that the author makes in sentence 2? E says sentence 2. Okay, let's look at sentence 2. China, right? Where is the sentence 2? Also, China is improving its ties with Bangladesh by ramping up infrastructure investments and expanding economic cooperation. What has China done? Improved its ties. Improved relationship, right, with Bangladesh. Improved relations. And how has it done? How has it done? Ramping up investments and expanding economic cooperation, right? These two things have done this, and that has to be the assumption, right? कि इन दोनों के होने से ही relations improve हो सकते हैं. Okay, let us look at the options. A says infrastructure investments alone is sufficient for improving ties with a particular country. See guys, ये जो दो measures हैं, they are not from that sentence we cannot assume that they are alone sufficient. Okay, so alone मतलब अकेले only infrastructure investments or only expanding economic cooperation is sufficient is a far-fetched option, far-fetched assumption. So these two are incorrect. Okay. C says only a combination. The problem is the word only. Okay. What has been done? Relations have been improved. How has it been done? By improving infrastructure, by expanding economic cooperation. But is this true that only a combination of infrastructure investments and expanding economic cooperation can improve ties? No, it is necessary, but it is not sufficient. Okay, I hope you are getting me. D says is the correct option as well. It says that a combination can improve ties with a particular country, right? If it was written cannot improve ties with a particular country, the author's opinion would have been completely devastated. So So this is the correct option. Alright. Question number 4 says, which among the following may be inferred from the passage above? Inferred. Inference type question hai. Okay. Let us look at the options. Bangladesh is India's largest trading partner. Okay. The catch over here is that Bangladesh is India's largest trading partner in South Asia. यहाँ पे कोई क्वांटिफायर नहीं लिखा गया कि इन साउथ एशिया है या इन द वर्ल्ड है. As I have mentioned in one of my previous videos, that if the quantifier is not present, we assume that the quantifier is universal. Okay. When we say that Bangladesh is India's largest trading partner, we mean that Bangladesh is India's largest trading partner in the world. Okay. So I hope you get the learning. A is not correct. B says Bangladesh is India's one such neighbor which supports India in difficult circumstances. If you remember, there was a sentence that Bangladesh is an all-weather friend of India, and an all-weather friend is someone who supports us in all situations and especially in difficult circumstances. Okay, so this is the correct option. C says India-Bangladesh ties today have acquired a multidimensional character. There is no, author is saying that India should bolster its ties with Bangladesh, right? But the fact that they have, in the option it is mentioned that they have already acquired a multidimensional character, cannot be inferred. Okay. D says war crimes and corruption trials have weakened the traditional opposition in Bangladesh. To those of you who have marked this, I understand that this sentence is a copy paste option or copy paste statement from the paragraph. See guys, sometimes you will, I deliberately put this here, sometimes you will find sentences that are directly copy pasted from the paragraph or passage. Okay? In the final paper or the sample papers, I think you will not find such options, but let us say that you find such option. Okay, your best bet to get that question correct would be to see whether the other three options can be in any way inferred from the passage. If there is even a slight indication that this option or A option or B option or C option or whatever option can be inferred from the passage, then you will mark that particular option, not that particular option which has been copy pasted from the paragraph. This will happen a lot in your mocks. You will be sort of put in a situation like this, okay, where one option is slightly inferable, or in this case pura inferable hai ye to, lekin the other option is something that is a copy paste from the passage. ठीक है? Keep that in mind. Alright, let us move. Alright guys, I think out of these 4 questions, 3 is a good score and 4 is an awesome score. 4 is awesome in this passage. Let us move to the next paragraph or next passage. So guys, this is the 6th passage or the 3rd passage of this video. We received only 10 responses and the average score was 1.8. This was a fairly easy passage, I must say, but the average score is still 1.8. This passage contained only 3 questions. Okay. Only 3 people out of 10 have got all 3 correct. Right. So for an easy passage, guys, even if you are getting 2 out of 3, you're not doing a good job. Okay, you must focus on getting each of the questions correct, especially in an easy passage. Let us start. This passage was taken from the Economic Times. Okay, India has dropped a place in the 2020 edition of the United Nations Human Development Index. Okay, this is the event. India has dropped a place in the United Nations Human Development Index. It is not that conditions in India have deteriorated, but that it has not improved while other countries have progressed. Okay. where is the pen? Yeah. इसके जो reason है, the reason for this dip is probably not because India's performance have deteriorated, but it is because other countries have progressed. Okay, the HDR 2020's focus on human influences on the planet, making for the Anthropocene age, provides a clue as to why India's human development is significant. Okay. There is a clue as to why India's human development is stagnant, and in the subsequent paragraphs, I think this would be discussed only. Okay. HDR 2020 brings together an understanding that progress that comes at the cost of the well-being of the planet is unsustainable and undermines human existence. So HDR 2020 stresses on the fact that the cost of the well-being on the planet is unsustainable and undermines human existence. It takes into account the need to quantify and understand the impact that human action has on the planet, meaning the choices that endanger sustained human life on Earth as we know it. It is a call, this Human Development Report is a call to embark on a path that expands human freedoms while easing planetary pressures. So it is important not just to liberate human being, but also to keep the pressure on the planet in check. Right, the HDI comprises 3 key baskets of data. Okay, 3 key baskets. What are those baskets, or what are those measures? Through metrics such as life expectancy, capacity measured by years of schooling, and standard of living, or gross national income per capita. What is measures is health, cognitive capacity, and productivity. This paragraph is basically talking about the HDR, or the report of HDR, and what suggestions that the author has to give on the basis of that report. All these three measures are heavily impacted by environmental factors. Air pollution is a major problem in India. It affects human health by increased incidence of pulmonary and cardiovascular diseases and non-communicable diseases such as diabetes. It adversely affects life expectancy. What are the problems of air pollution is mentioned over here, right? It also impacts, the author further says that it also impacts cognitive abilities, and this is reflected in metrics relating to school attendance and performance. Health and education have a direct bearing on productivity, in turn affecting national income. So what are the factors that national income depends upon are written here, that health and education affect productivity, which further affects national income. India's quest to improve its human development index will require mainstreaming environmental and climate concerns in its economic and development policies. Okay, this was a fairly comprehensible passage, I should say. Within 2 minutes only, you should have read this passage, right? The summary is written over here, that India's quest to improve its human development index will require mainstreaming environmental and climate concerns in its economic and development policies. Okay, let us move to the questions. Which among the following cannot be inferred from the passage above? Okay, cannot be inferred. You need to keep this in mind. Cannot be inferred. Okay. India's low rank in HDI is a result of a dip in India's performance from previous years. We saw in the first paragraph, that this dip is not caused because of India's deterioration, but the fact that it has not improved relative to other countries. So this itself is the correct answer, right? And 7 of you out of 10 have marked this as correct. Okay, so I hope this is clear. B says the 3 parameters of HDI measure health, cognitive capacity, and productivity. This is true. In fact, it is a copy paste. At least you cannot put this into something that cannot be inferred, right? C says school attendance and performance can be improved if air pollution is reduced. Okay, what is the link? The link is that school attendance, the fact that air pollution impacts cognitive abilities, which further is reflected in metrics relating to school attendance and performance, makes this option inferable, right? We already have A is the correct answer, or that cannot be inferred, so D is not correct, right? Question number 2 says, which among the following measures can improve India's Human Development Index? Okay, something that will require mainstreaming environmental and climate concerns in its economic and development policies, which means we may look ahead in terms of development, but we also need to keep the environmental factors in mind, right? Question number 2 option says, A says an agreement between the state and the center to cut 1,000 trees for constructing buildings. Now this is fairly easy option to eliminate because it may sort of enhance the development of the country, but it is coming at an environmental cost, an important environmental cost, cutting 1,000 trees, which is not in line with what the author has said, right? B says installation of solar energy at the terrace of almost all commercial buildings. Solar energy or solar panels कह लो, right, at the terrace of almost all commercial buildings, which means that commercial buildings which are part of economic and development policies, and the fact that you are trying to install solar panels over there at the terrace of those buildings, which means you are keeping the environmental factors also in check. So this is clearly the correct option. C is not correct because it says that replacing renewable source of energy with non-renewable sources of energy. Non-renewable sources of energy are not desirable, right? They are detrimental to the environment, right? So that is why that cannot be correct. A cannot be correct, so both A and B भी correct नहीं हो सकता. This question was an application question, right? Author ने कुछ parameters दिए हैं और क्वेश्चन सेटर ने कुछ circumstances भेजे हैं. You have to determine कि कौन सा correct है. That is how legal reasoning also works, right? So the entire legal reasoning, reading comprehension and critical reasoning are in sync. Okay, if you excel in one of those subjects, it is probable that you will excel in the other two subjects as well, right? Question number 3 says, which among the following questions has not been answered by the passage? A says, has India's performance in HDI deteriorated? No, right? In the first paragraph itself, that it said, the author said that it is not that conditions in India have deteriorated, right? So this has been answered, so this cannot be correct. B says, what are the parameters on which HDI is measured? So this is also mentioned clearly that the HDI comprises life expectancy, capacity measured by years of schooling and standard of living or gross national income, and what it measures is health, cognitive capacity and productivity. So this is also mentioned. What are the measures of air pollution? What are the measures to control air pollution? Now guys, this option is not, this question का answer अपने को passage से नहीं मिलता, right? There are answers to the cons of air pollution, but how do we contain air pollution? We don't get this answer from the passage, right? So this is the correct option that we are looking for, right? And D says, what are some of the factors that affect national income? The 4 of you have marked this as the correct option. Mind you that in the second paragraph only, the last last few lines. Health and education, read the last line. Health and education have a direct bearing on productivity, which in turn affects the national income. Right. So that is answerable from the passage. Hence it is not correct option. Right. So this passage is also done. We did 3 passages in this video. In the next video, we will be covering the last 3 passages that I sent on Telegram. Right. Please consider joining our Telegram channel and subscribing to our YouTube channel as well. This is AcetheCLAT signing off, and I'll see you in the next video.